Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. This recap is going to have everything. It just ended, the tournament did a couple of hours ago. Only reason I haven't been uploading more of it is because I moved everything. I was there. My setup was there. I moved it. It's because today I finally got the fixable part of my standing desk, and now it functions, and yeah, great, but whatever. You don't care about me. This recap is gonna have so much awesome stuff. I hope you're ready. Timestamps on the video player. Here we go, including an amazing tweet from not just anybody, but from El Magnito, Magnus Carlsen himself. Okay, here we go. We're gonna kick things off with the final Rapid game. This is the 9th round of Rapid. It happened a couple of days ago, and it's Hikaru Nakamura versus Fabiano Caruana. It's a Ruy Lopez. Great. A6, bishop A4, main line, bishop to C5. Now, bishop C5 in Ruy Lopez's is known as the Archangelsk. It's one of the coolest names in chess. C3 challenges the bishop with either B4 or, much more commonly, D4. Black plays B5, kicking out the bishop, and now D5. Now, this just looks kind of aggressive, and it looks like, you know, white can open up the position, and this really benefits white because white's king is out of the center, and black's king is in the center, and if you're going to open the center, probably the person whose king is still in the center is going to have some problems, but there are ways for black to go about this. D takes E4, D takes E5, and now the queens are gone. And once the queens are gone, the dynamic of the game kind of changes, because after pawn takes knight, and then a couple moves later, you know, Hikaru rounds up this pawn without damaging his own structure by pinning it, right? Bishop D7, and he's got some pressure here. This is a very interesting position. Like, everything changes. Now we're not talking checkmate, although we're always talking checkmate, like, let's be honest. Look at this move. This is a very interesting move, and there's an interesting story to this move and this game, and you're about to find out because you're watching this video. Aren't you happy you clicked on it? I have more energy at 9:30 after lifting heavy stuff the entire day. Pawn takes G2. Why did Hikaru not take back? Now Fabiano's got... Wait, Hikaru's not taking the pawn at all. This knight just dances into the middle of the board, applying more pressure, so the bishop has to take it. Now the pawn takes. Now, we're gonna get this pawn. We'll get this pawn. Look, look, we got the pawn. You happy? And there's no problems on the G-file. That's the only reason that Hikaru was delaying taking. There could be problems, but the bishop just blocks. And, you know, Lil Nas X has the horses in the back, but Hikaru's got the bishops in the back. So, like, I don't know which one is better, because in this case, these bishops are, like, really, really strong. So Fabiano plays knight back to E7. His idea is that he's trying to go here, and then he's going to try to put something on D5. Like, he's probably going to try to put his knight on D5 after unpinning his king. So Hikaru just says, let's go. Let's open up the board. I'm down a pawn, but it doesn't matter because I've got the bishops and I've got the rooks, and you're under a lot of pressure. Fabiano plays king B7. Now Hikaru plays rook C5. That's a very interesting move, adding a layer of defense to the pawn. And the only reason Fabiano delayed this move, c takes D5, is that after bishop D5, the position actually is very dangerous. The whole point of putting the rook on C5 was to enable this capture. That is why you would do that, and now you laser beam that rook. Black is in serious trouble. Black basically has to tie his shoes together to survive. And let me tell you something. If your options are not survive or tie shoes together to survive, most likely you will end up over here, but it will take a little bit longer. Like, your shoes are tied together, and then maybe you can, like, sit there for a little bit. You're going to have to go, like, get some food. You'll probably trip over, fall on your face. Okay, I'm going to stop reminiscing about my time getting bullied in, like, 2nd grade. Bishop C6. Fabiano's going to get bullied, though, in this game. Takes. And Hikaru has now transform the position from pressure in the opening to pressure in the endgame, right? So even though he's still a pawn down, activity is everything. In the endgame, don't get it twisted, material counts for a lot. Like, you can't be like, well, Gotham said in his video that I can be down a rook, seven pawns, 2 goats and 1 cow, and 3 Pop-Tarts on a chessboard, but I'm still okay because I have activity. No. Hikaru's down 1 pawn, and it's a doubled F pawn. It's a difference. And now he plays rook d7, and he's got this, but he's also got rook d6 coming back. Like, Fabiano can't activate his rook because his knight is stuck. So he's got to move his knight, but he can't. He can't move his knight because rook f7, he just can't move. He can't move his knight, can't move his rook, can't move anything. Now king f1. Now the rook can't get in at all. Now bishop e3. And now I'm going to go for your weaknesses. So if you play this move king to b5, which looks like you would like to play it, I can paralyze you forever. Now you're like really paralyzed. This is very bad. And he does it after king d5, plays rook a8. And he just very slowly just sucks the life out of Fabiano's position. Like, Fabiano can't move any pieces. Now he takes a pawn. Now Fabiano's like, I can activate my horse. But Hikaru just gets another pawn. Sure, you activated your horse, but you lost 2 pawns doing it. And you still have all the problems of your pawn structure. And now, and only now, do I take. I go from a pawn down to a pawn up, but it's more than a pawn up because you have this stupid stuff. It's more like 2 pawns up. I have A and B, and that's it. Fabiano resigns. Now, I told you there was going to be interesting lore to this game, right? I told you this was going to be a good recap. Well, they all are, but this one's going to be great because you're great. So, Hikaru said he prepared this line in 2019 at the Isle of Man tournament, the winner of which qualified for the candidates. It was Wang Hao. But Hikaru said that he had prepared against this game against Fabiano. And Fabiano did not play knight c6. He played the Petrov in that game. And they drew. And Hikaru said that if he got to use that prep in this game in 2019 and win in the same way that he did, there's a chance he qualified for the candidates. He did not qualify for the candidates because he drew Fabiano. So he became a streamer. Isn't that interesting? Fascinating stuff. Now, we're going to take a look at some more games. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov versus Fabiano Caruana. Here we go. D4. Now, we're in the Blitz, so we're going to have a lot of like really fun Blitz games. Openings are going to be bad. The players make a lot of blunders. We have a Rogozin Queen's Gambit decline. Very aggressive. Bishop G5. Let me get rid of that and play Queen A4 check. The point of Queen A4 check is that you have to play this move Knight C6. And it's not really that you're winning any material, it's just this knight is kind of dumb. So now the players just develop as if nothing happened. CD5, ED5. Okay, pawn structure has been determined. What now? Castles, self-explanatory. But, well, I mean, if we're going to undevelop everything, all right, Queen D1, Knight B8, Knight B1, let's get that rook back there. No. The point of Bishop F8, you got nowhere convenient to put the bishop. Here, it's kind of in the way of everybody, and on D6, there's Knight D5. So it's very common, actually, you go here and you sort of let it rock. And in this game, well, there's a lot of weird shuffling. They're super GMs, just like, what is Rook B8? Rook B8, Rook B8, make a move that makes no sense. You watch Guess the Elo? Knight A4, Bishop D6. Oh, now the bishop is back. Now the knight transfers to c5. If one guy is making moves that look logical, that guy's name is Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, but, you know, I digress. Knight e7. This is very common in these structures. The knight here just doesn't do too much, so you move the knight to f5, often to d6 and even to e4, but at least you move it over there and you play c6. And g5 is exotic. That's a very exotic move. g5, g4, I would think the roles are reversed. I would think the Shakhriyar is doing this to someone. But now that g5 happens, he's like, oh, you want to go g4? Yeah, no. We can't have that. You can't play g4. So knight to f5, bishop g4. Now that's interesting, bishop g4. So I guess if knight comes here, is he going to take and then bring his queen out? That's very interesting. So king g7, what is this? Aren't you going to go like rook h8 and h5? Yeah, that's what he's doing. Queen f3. Now c6, as promised, knight to b3. Bishop c7. And now Shak is like, remember when you thought you were attacking me? I don't think so. All right? You're playing touch butt with that dork in the park. I don't know why Mamedyarov is now Nate Diaz at the first Conor McGregor fight or the second one. Anyway, if you don't understand the reference, just, I'm in a good mood. All right? I'm going to be goofy tonight. Today. Maybe it's the morning. We're going to have fun and we're going to look at chess. DE4. Knight E4. Now the queen's under attack. Where are you moving it? Well, you got to keep the knight defended because my queen and my bishop see it. But, dude, I'm telling you, who is attacking who? Like now, okay, go ahead and play H5. You want to play H5 so bad, so do it. Okay, check. Not all checks are created equal. Queen C3, you got to play F6. If you don't play F6, if you go back, my knight jumps in. So you got to go F6. Yeah, but now I take, because otherwise my bishop was in danger. You take. Uh-oh. Danger. Levels. That's a problem. You're going to take my knight? Okay, I'm going to take your bishop. You got to move your rook. Knight e6, knight d7, knight b7, and I have pressure on this. So I could take anything. Bishop d5, rook d1. That is a very creative move. That is called tactical defense of what? Well, c7. c7 was hanging. This defends it. How? Because rook c7, you want to go knight e6. You can't. This bishop, so you take it. Tactical defense. That's what that's called. Let's back up. Queen f7. You want my pawn? I'm going to take on g5. You're not going to be able to sleep at night. Okay, so g4. So f5. What is Shakhriyar doing? Now I can take. No, you can't. Here. Queen g3. And here's the problem. Who protects this? Your queen? Yeah, that's really nice. Good job protecting your pawn, bozo. Very nice. You defended 1 and lost 5. Do the math. So, rook e7. And now Shak is so patient. He doesn't even take on g4. He had a slightly better move, but it's Blitz. He could have gone knight e6. This would have been the knockout punch. He goes rook e1. Now, computer here shows that after rook e8, black is apparently okay. But the players are really low on time. Black's been suffering for a long time. He's borderline, fulfilled his duties as a Buddhist. Check here. And it looks like he's finally out of danger. Finally. He's so close. He plays queen to h5. Trying to get... I got so excited I spit on the screen. Knight d7. King f7. And here, Mamedyarov played a move that was so dirty. So savage. So disgusting. He played... Oh my goodness! Look at that move! He sacks a queen to lure the king over to e8, and now he forks. And the computer here tries to show some way that black can hold it, but it's meaningless. I don't even... Once you get hit with queen e8, like, it's over. It doesn't even... He just brought his king and his knight, and Fabiano resigned because this is a losing endgame. You play g4, you win the other pawns. I mean, I don't even want to... Yeah, once again, instant replay. King f7, queen e8. Gross. Poor Fabiano. He's 2 games here. Okay. Wesley So versus Jeffery Xiong. d4. We have a Slav defense with knight f3, knight f6, e3, bishop f5. This is known as the slow Slav. The one that's driving the Zaporozhets? I don't even know how to say it. Knight c3, e6, solid. Knight h4, very common. Now, the rest of this game is going to look very strange. The rest of the opening is going to look very strange. Basically, white wants the bishop and white wants the castle queenside, okay? So all those things are going to happen. Watch. See? Queenside castle, and you need to take the bishop because it would have patrolled your king. And you're okay with this because even though it's a little bit weird, the enemy pieces can't really come forward. And e5 is just a bit too weakening. e5 is possible, but it weakens d5 too much. And now it's all about whether or not white can actually get going. And black will obviously castle short or not castle at all, but you're not really interested in what... That looks like an over-the-board mouse slip, but it's actually not. I think Jeffery straight up thought that his king would be safer on f8. Sam Shankland castled against Wesley So, I think, in an online event, and he got hit with g4, h4, h5, and it was very painful. Wesley So did some nasty things, yeah, King f8 is what Jeffery did. So rook c1, rook b8, knight e2, and it looks like he just blundered a pawn. It looks like rook h2, just a pawn blunder. But when your opponent strikes you on the side of the board, do you know what you're supposed to do? Do you know what you do? You don't call security police. No, you strike back in the center. Sorry, he took first. Now e4. This is very important because oftentimes when the opponent is distracted on the flanks, you go straight down the middle with your army. You can often dominate both sides of the board. It's the way the board works. You're on the right side, you only see the left side. You're on the left side, you don't see the right side. You're in the center, you see both sides. Wise. DE, FE, rook D8. Wait, what about the... Jeffery, what about the... Come on, Jeffery, you can do it. Rook C8. Pave the way, put your back into it. Oh no. Oh, this is very scary looking. Now, here, Jeffery had the absolutely ludicrous queen h5, and this just shows you the power of the queen. It sees the bishop on the other side of the board, and it threatens mate. Not quite, because the rook can come back, but if bishop takes d8, like, for example, bishop d8, there is check, here, check, and then you win the other bishop. Queens are ridiculous, which is why it's better to just trade them on move 3, especially if you don't want to get checkmated. So rook comes back to c1, Jeffery doesn't see queen h5, queen goes to d4, and now, just like the other game you saw, the first rapid game, we have 2 passed pawns here. That's pretty cool. Rook d7, queen b8 check, knight e8, bishop b5. Now if you move the rook anywhere, it's mate. If you move the rook there, it gets taken, so you can't do that. So queen takes e4 check. Queen trade? No. I'm gonna go all the way back. You know why? Because your own pieces are suffocating your king. Queen h8. Look at that right triangle. Look at that right triangle. I got a C in geometry. Worst subject I ever had in school. Not very good at shapes. King e7. Bishop b4. Knight d6. All right, the king is safe, right? What? If rook takes d6, queen e8 is mate. Now, if king takes d6... say a prayer to whatever god it is you believe in, because this is about to get very ugly. Rook d1 check. King c5. That's just the hanging rook at the end, by the way. There's nothing there. Bishop b2 check. King b1. And Jeffrey's like, yo, man, you could have all my pieces. I'm going for perpetual check. There is no perpetual check, and this king is surrounded by the hooligans and resigns. Wesley wins a very nice game, very explosive game. He's been crushing with this slow Slav, and you just can't let Wesley get to this position. I mean, he is too dynamic as a player. He understands the right moment to sack a little bit of material, to go straight down the middle. Yeah, great game from Wesley. And the next game that I'd like to show you is the game between Mamedyarov. Mamedyarov is like involved in, he's like the UFC fighter that wins or loses, he gets the fight of the night bonus. I mean, he gets concussions and takes years off his life, but he makes 50 grand, so, you know, all is forgiven and pay structure is not really debated anymore. Now, Richard Rapport had a great tournament. Rapport had a super tournament. If you don't know who Richard Rapport is, it's because he hasn't participated in a lot of the online events, but he's really strong. He's like top 10, top 15 in classical in the world, maybe even higher. Really good at rapid and blitz, so... I like to look at him for opening advice. Sometimes he plays some very interesting stuff. So he and Mamedyarov go for kind of a King's Indian fusion setup where white really doesn't play e4 for a long time, like normally white has played e4. Here, Mamedyarov hit him with a little sneak attack, thought maybe that Rapport would blunder it. He didn't blunder it. So now you gotta go h4. I mean, you got a rook and a king on the other side. So if you get rid of the h-pawns, obviously you're going to deliver checkmate. But Rapport just physically imposes a blockade of the move h5. Now, you can't go g4. That would be really nice for white. So, since you can't go g4, you go for the next best thing, which is e4, and now the center locks. Sorry, misclick. f5 is an idea oftentimes played in the King's Indian, and g4 is what white wants to play. The problem is that if white, for example, after a5, were to play a move like rook g1, basically telegraphing this move, black would play either f5 or this. You can't play g4. You play knight h2. Okay, it's very clear you want to play g4. And to be honest, it's actually not the world's worst idea. Now, black would probably play h5. But this actually is a pretty reasonable plan. In fact, the computer really likes this. Oh, look at me. Maybe I should have played in this tournament. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't insult the players like that. Knight a6. Knight c5. Now this is really starting to look like a vintage King's Indian. And at some point, Mamedyarov is going to castle. He does not set up for the next game. He's trying to create a pawn attack, but he needs to kick out the bishop, kicks out the knight, defends the pawn, and now plays long castle. And here, white has everything. This is the dream position. White has figured out a setup, an armada of pieces over here, and he is ready to play f4 and g4. So, obviously, Rapport needs to address the problems near his king and do something about them by playing the move rook to a5. Look, he saw rook a5, and he kind of liked it. It's not a very good move. g4, and Rapport's like, yo, take my knight. You want, just go ahead. Well, Shak's like, well, all right. I mean, it's a free pawn. I'll do it. But now the bishop opens up. Now black also always has some a3 on the cards. You never know what's going to happen. b5. Whoa, it's now +4. Okay, yes, very good. C takes b5. If you take like this, which is obviously the idea, this is very bad. Just because you can take it doesn't mean you should, because after rook b5, it goes from +5 to -1. Your internet didn't lag. I'm just... Dramatic effect. That's bad. You shouldn't make moves that throw the eval by 6 points. I know you do. I know. You're capable of anything because you're great. But for these guys, they're not capable of that stuff. Bishop e3. Look what's going on here. I mean, like, this is kind of scary. So Mamedyarov plays this move e5. This is a really interesting move. If you play queen takes e5, then after f4, you need to go back, and then I'm going to run you over. So this is bad. This is bait. e5 is bait. So he takes on f3 instead. Okay. Mamedyarov continues the assault with h5. Feral but experienced. From Sherlock Holmes. And he takes. And now his position, like, is just... It's right there. I mean, it's right there. He's got the bishop and the queen lined up. He plays a very good move. Top engine move. King b1. Getting out of the way of the diagonal. Rapport plays rook b8. Now, to his credit, Rapport's position does look pretty scary, and if you have like 5 seconds to make a move here, there is a chance you do something a little bit dumb, but Mamedyarov continues chugging away. He removes the knight from action, dc5, and plays the move bishop e4. Now the queen hangs around. The queen's like borderline trapped. I mean, literally rook g1 and d6 is +8, just throwing the pawn down further down the board. Jumped ahead. Rook takes h6. Yeah, we're just gonna go past that. It's really late, and I want to edit that out. Listen, you didn't see it. You saw nothing. You don't even watch the video, right? You're watching in another tab. I know you. Rook h6. The game is like almost over, even though you kind of just saw what happens. a3. The position is +10. It is +10. It is officially a guess the elo game. Rook takes g6. It's like +7. Bishop d3 check. And folks, let me say something. Queen takes bishop. Rook takes b2. Mamedyarov has to choose between 2 moves. Do you go toward the middle? Do you go toward the corner? 50-50 shot. Pause here. Decide. You chose wrong. King a1. That's incorrect. King c1 is safe, because then you can block any diagonal check with your rook. The problem with King a1 is Queen f2. And there is a combination of a few threats, but Rook a2, Knight a2, Queen replaces the Rook with mate. But Rapport played Queen e5, and now it's +15 again. Woohoo! It's +15 because there's no threat. The Queen's not actually threatening to go to b2. So now you gotta play d6, which he plays. It is now +17, +40, or mate in like 14. Oh, no, it's now mate in 19. Mate in 19, mate in 14, mate in 10. Okay, great, wonderful. C takes d6, and King h8. Now play Queen f7, and now it's -10. We went from mate in 14 moves to -10, because now, Rook b1, make a move that makes no sense. 3 pieces can take that. You can't take that with the knight because it's illegal. All of them lose. King takes b1, Rook b5. Folks, he sacked 2 rooks. When you do it, it's a double rook blunder. When he does it, he's Richard Rapport. Anything, you could take its mate, you could move your king, its mate. Here, check, here, and Rook b1, make a move them. Oh my goodness. If you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, if you like, this idiot is just singing Rook b1. Why does he have a song about Rook b1? Guess the elo. It's a guess the elo highlight from a previous episode. After this is done, watch the next 2 games, and then go to YouTube and type in Rook b1 Gotham or something like that. Probably if you just type in Rook b1. There's a video. Great video, 350,000 views. Shout out to that small creator who made some... Anyway, whatever. Wonderful. So, that brings me to my... No, actually, this is not my final game. This game is an interlude. This is an interlude. This is a 170 move game. I'm not going to show you the whole game because you would lose your attention and I would lose my attention. So, it was a Sicilian defense It was a Taimanov Sicilian with the 4 knights. And it was actually a very complicated game. I'm just going to keep clicking the forward arrow and narrating. Basically, black was up a pawn from the opening, but white had the bishop pair and very quickly won the pawn back. Upon the trade of queens, there was a bishop pair versus bishop knight game, and because black's position is a little bit blocked because all the pawns are on light squares, and so is the bishop, Fabiano was able to develop some sort of initiative by removing his weakness of the doubled pawns, taking control of the open file, and making Mamedyarov fight kind of on the back foot. While Mamedyarov spent time moving his king out and stabilizing his position, Fabiano took over the initiative, and again, removed his weakness of the c-pawn, but Mamedyarov stuck around with d3 and knight on c5, and got a very playable position by using his pawns. So now the initiative for white is still very strong, but the position is quite unclear. The c3 pawn's a little bit weak, but the pawns are very strong in the center of the board. Here comes g4. Now Fabiano is completely winning, but there is rook g8. It's a very tricky move, trying to utilize the recently weakened white king, but the king goes to f2. Now we're at safety. Now the king goes to e3. Why are both kings trying to meet in the center of the board? Was this some Vienna convention? Look at this, king f4. Is that even where that convention happened? I don't know. I don't know. This game, by the way, it's only been like 30-something moves. So we're going to kind of hit the forward button. Yeah, so the reason this game was 170 moves is because it was an end game of minor pieces, knight and bishop versus 2 bishops, with 2 pawns versus 1 pawn. So basically, a couple of things apply for why a game would last this long. Number one, the 50 move rule, which is when there's no trades and no pawn advancement in 50 turns. That can happen, and that kind of did happen because a king just marched all over the both kings were. I mean, this game is an acid trip. It's the chess equivalent of an acid trip. Fabiano, this is move 67. They play 100 more moves. Basically, black is up a pawn. And what black is going to try to do in this endgame is promote the pawn, and white will need to sacrifice material for that pawn. Probably the bishop, because if you sack your rook, you're going to lose because you're down a rook. But after that happens, the rook and bishop versus rook endgame is going to arise, and that is a draw. I mean, unless you lose it, but it's a draw. Now, that is kind of what Fabiano is trying to survive here, because Mamedyarov is trying to promote his pawn. Yeah, the pawn's not moving anywhere because of the dark squared blockade. The bishop and the rook combine to block the pawn completely. And now we are just going for the 50 move rule. If Fabiano basically just collapses in his chair from exhaustion, there is a chance that he makes a blunder, but that never happens, and the pawn cannot go forward. And oh my god, I have to keep clicking for another like 20 seconds. And, yeah, they drew. And that takes me to my final game, Hikaru Nakamura versus Quang Liem. Okay? We're going to finish this game. The recap's going to be about 30 minutes, and I'm going to tell you why this video is called what it's called. D4, knight f6, and we have a Nimso Indian. Queen c2, main line from Hikaru. D5 takes, bishop g5, h6. And this, and Liem says, this is like the second to last round. I'm really tired. I don't want to play anymore. G5. Let's have some fun. This is a very good line. Looks kind of like a Rogozin. The bishop on b4 pins the knight to the king in many lines. Then you play knight to e4. This is very common. And not just g5, you gotta go h5. Who cares if children are watching? I mean, you gotta go here and try to trap the bishop. So f3. I know Ben Feingold says never play it, but Hikaru's Hikaru. You don't gotta listen to that. Bishop is gonna come back here. So queen e7. What are those? Yeah, and he's like, so? You can't go g4. You can't put anything here. How is... Yeah, the computer's saying that black is better, but so what? The computer doesn't know anything about chess. a3, knight h5, knight e2. Like, the king is just amongst the people. The king's safe. Who's ever getting to the king? Castles, rook e1, f5. Liem is like, dude, I can't believe this bozo just put his king on d2. Like, I gotta play f5. I gotta play aggressive. I gotta do stuff. And then he's like, what do I even do? I have no useful pawn move. I mean, b5 just weakens my knight. f4, g4, none of that works. My king's there. Why would I open my king? So queen g7, knight e7. And remember a couple of times during this recap that there was a certain move that gets played when a person wants to create an attack. Wesley So played it. Mamedyarov played it. That move, folks, is e4. And Hikaru goes for it. And now there's going to be pandemonium because after takes, the position is opening up. And only one man is going to be happy when all of this happens. And it's the guy playing with the white pieces because this king is actually weaker than the white king. The white king is actually pretty safe, but it's still very complicated. Knight jumps into f4 to do some damage, d5. Knight takes the bishop. Rook takes on e6. Rook e6, d e6, and now a very nice idea, queen h7. And black is better. Liem has outmaneuvered Hikaru here. The knight is very well positioned in white's territory. King a1 gets off that diagonal. Queen f5 mobilizes. Queen b3. Now the knight and the queen are kind of obsolete because there's no... King and queen are not really in any danger. Rook to e8. Now e7 check. The queen checks the king. Look at that move. Oh, God. If you take queen f7, hello. In chess, resourcefulness is everything. And blitz chess is when the brilliancy and the resourcefulness comes out. Knight e4, right on cue, and knight takes g5. Another move that looks impossible. And if queen g5, you take the knight. So king here, knight back to f3, and let it be known that this knight made it all the way back to b1 to defend the king. Now this is pinned. Queen f7 is lurking. Queen g8 is lurking. Queen b7 is lurking to take the rook. This is here. Queen e4. Bishop back to c3. White is very safe. You know who wins in a position of low time and a very weakened king? The guy with the very weakened king. Knight c5, queen f7. From 0, 0, 0 to +4 for white with looming threats on this. Queen f8, and Hikaru just gives a check, and there's nothing that black can do. Look at this. That's the problem with a weak king. Boom and boom. This degree of resourcefulness, tactical acuity, I think that's the right word, led to Hikaru winning the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz without losing a single game in 27 games against some of the best players in the world. This is Hikaru's first over-the-board tournament in a while. Since 2019, I believe, unless he played very early in 2020. These are your final standings. Hikaru wins with a collective score of 24, 3 points ahead of Fabiano, and nearly 5 ahead of Rapport, who, by the way, had an amazing tournament. Those are your final standings. And the reason it's called professional streamer is because, I mean, the guy's been streaming. None of these guys have been streaming. It's actually unbelievably impressive what he did. It was very, very well done. He should be commended. And that first story about the candidates and, you know, the prep and everything, that was pretty wild. And now, folks, I will end by showing you this. Magnus Carlsen tweeted, "Congrats to world number 2 rated player in Rapid and Blitz, Hikaru, for winning the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz." Magnus Carlsen, 2 in the morning in Norway. He pulls out the Android, boots up the Twitter app, and tells Hikaru that he is the 2nd rated player in the world in Rapid and Blitz. Now, there is shade in this. Why? Because before the tournament, Hikaru actually was the number 1 rated player in the world in Blitz by like 10 points. But because of the games against these players, he actually now is the 2nd highest rated player in Blitz. So he fell a little bit despite winning the tournament. But he is the 2nd highest rated player in the world in Rapid. So it's Magnus Hikaru across Blitz and Rapid. Magnus. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the recap. I hope the energy was high. I appreciate you making it this far in the video. I will see you in the next one. I'm going to go get some rest and get myself a waffle with some fruit on it and some ice cream. Good night.